Hello and welcome to another episode of Building Our World. Today I was joined by Barbara Kryslak, who is the Senior Recruiting Manager at UP42 in Berlin. Now, I wanted to get Barbara on the show because she's originally from Poland, spent some time in Dubai, and then has come to Germany and settled and is really looking to stay in Berlin. So I wanted to dig into what it really is like to relocate to Berlin, the ins and outs of it, and also what it's like to live and work there, positives and negatives. Something that's probably really valuable for people who are thinking about or looking to relocate to the Berlin Tech Hub. Now, in the second half of the episode, we also go into the state of the whole ecosystem, the tech market, the talent shortage, and also the talent acquisition side of things. She gives some great tips as well for anyone looking to get ahead in their interviews and job applications. So I would encourage you to give this episode a listen. Barbara really knows her stuff. She goes into some great depth and gives some really valuable insights as well. I really enjoyed it and I got a lot of value from it, and I hope you do too. So without further ado, let's get this episode started. Alone in Germany as well. So you're in Berlin now. What has made you move to Berlin in the first place, and why do you plan on sticking with it?
Yeah, thank you very much for inviting me. And I would say that moving to Berlin was one of the best decisions in my life. Never regretted it. Have been here for like 2.5 years now. I have been living in some different, I'm originally from Poland, had a chance to work there. Then I moved to actually Düsseldorf on west side of Germany. And after some time, I got a job and moved to Dubai, where I have been a flight attendant for Emirates. That was a super interesting experience. Came back to Germany, and it was again Düsseldorf. I got a job in Cologne, so I was kind of commuting. And after some time, I realized I think this is not for me. Like the west side of Germany, where it's like more German, the companies, or at least the company that I was working for, was more traditional. And I always wanted to, maybe not always, but like after some time, I felt the need to move to a city that is bigger, that is giving you more possibilities. And the first thing I had in mind was Berlin. I'm originally from Poland, from Poznań, which is not very far from Berlin. So I have been in Berlin many times before. And I always thought about it as a very interesting city. But also your point of view actually changes when you move here, because interesting is like not enough that you can say. This city is so full of opportunities and so full of interesting people. Every district is different, and every district brings you different kinds of opportunities, which I absolutely love. That's my 2.5 years here. Have been in the same company for this whole time, working as a recruiter. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, what a lot of people don't realize is how different Berlin is to the rest of Germany. It's like super unique. It's almost, try to explain it to people, it's almost like anti-German in a way. It like goes against the German sort of stereotypes, I suppose.
When people say Germany and say Berlin, I say Berlin is not Germany. You can speak English with no problem and everyone is going to understand you. And basically this whole diversity, I believe it's not existing in any other city in Germany. And this is what makes Berlin so unique.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, you see it in the companies. I see it from my point of view, the efforts people go to for diversity and inclusion. Do you think that's always been the case, or has that been driven by these tech companies who traditionally are traditionally more progressive than other companies?
I think it wasn't here always, and it wasn't, any country we talk about, if it's, Berlin in Germany or any countries outside of Germany, the topic of diversity, I believe, is something that we're talking about recently, and we put more attention to it. And as recruiters, HR, we try to also, bring other people from the company to think and talk about it. I have been connected with tech startups. I can see that it's a very important topic for those companies. And I cannot say how it is for bigger corporations, but I believe they are also trying their best. And it's hard to say if it's sometimes for real or sometimes it's just, for kind of promotional reasons. But whatever it is, it's good that it's bringing more diverse people to the companies, to be honest.
Yeah, there's always that issue of are people doing stuff like this to look good, or do they actually mean it? But I know when I started coming to Berlin and doing work in Berlin with different companies, I previously did work in London, and like Berlin is just so much more friendly and people are so much more open. Like in London, I always say, if you broke your leg in the street, people would just walk over you. They didn't really care. Everyone's too busy. But like,
I had no idea.
Oh yeah, it's in London. Like if you're on the tube in the subway in London and someone talks to you, you think they're just the biggest weirdo ever. Like it's just not what you do. But everyone in Berlin is so open, so friendly, and especially if you're coming as a newcomer, you get treated really well. That was something I really noticed when I first came to Berlin the first few times.
Great. Of course, there are, different situations. So sometimes I really believe that Berlin is doing great and like it's very open, but at the same time, sometimes there is some discrimination happening. And I don't know, we relocate as a company, a lot of people, and we see some issues coming, but like I believe that many people are talking about it and not trying to make it happen. Like when you think about finding an apartment in Berlin, this is a big issue. Like still the problem of being accepted more because you are German or speak German. Like if you talk with your friends in Berlin, I believe that there is an issue that it's still kind of persisting. And we as companies sometimes have to go around it to, even contact the people, speaking as the candidate or the new joiner that we have for them to get the apartment in a better way. So there are some issues, but at the same time, what I love about here is like people do not care how you look, what you wear, how you are. It's like you can be really free in here.
Yeah, absolutely. One of my first ever meetings in Berlin, I'll never forget, the person said, Berlin's a city where you can be whoever you want to be. And
exactly.
That is so true. Interesting what you say about the accommodation. I mean, I didn't know I thought it was just like a supply and demand issue. And I didn't know there was sort of that discrimination aspect as well. But when I speak to some candidates, especially if they don't do it through like a relocation agency or an agency once they're there, which most people are advised to do, but they turn up to these flat viewings and there's like 20 people there and you're all trying to pass each other on the stairs. And it's almost like these new flats. I know every time I go to Berlin, there's new buildings being erected, but they almost can't come quick enough. Is there any sort of, it's a big issue. Is there any sort of tips you would give to people to try and, just get their foot in the door on the accommodation side of things?
Rely on your company. So if you have people at your company, I don't know, recruiter, office manager, whoever is supporting you, or as you said, the relocation agency, rely on those people and also prepare everything in advance. Like have all your documents beautiful and ready so you can submit when the flat is nice. And you have to be quick because so many people, like friends, candidates I know, like you look at the flat on Friday and basically the same day or Monday maximum, you have to say that you like it and basically submit all the documents. If not, you're too late. So you have to be ready. You have to have a decision already made what you want. And also what I say always to the people who are coming from outside of Berlin, who don't know the city, is try with temporary first, because really it's hard to understand Berlin and the neighborhoods without being here. So I would always say, try temporary flat for like 1 to 3 months. And in this time, when you're already here, search for a permanent apartment. In this way, you can go around the neighborhoods and check what you really like. Like if you live in Charlottenburg, maybe it's like, it's big things to say, but like this district is completely different than, I don't know, Kreuzberg, for example. So it's good for people to go around, walk around, and to actually check it out.
Yeah, absolutely. And for anyone listening, temporary accommodation is fairly easy to come by, and it's a fairly common thing.
Very
to
common.
do. Yeah, so don't feel like you're the odd one out who's doing that. When it
And you
comes
can
to district,
do. Oh, sorry.
carry on.
Regarding the temporary accommodation, because Airbnb is what people think about first, but basically Airbnb most of the time you cannot register it, and this is very important when you come to Germany. Like you need to register to have your all paperwork ready. So it's good to look for temporary accommodation where you can register, and there are lots of websites offering furnished apartments for like short period rental where you can register, and then you can go around your tax and everything else, basically having this registration in place.
Absolutely. No, really good advice. What about the districts? What do you think? What's your favorite district? Because they're almost like cities or little towns within the city. And yeah, you're right. They're completely different. Where would you suggest for maybe like someone who's a bit younger, who's coming, who's maybe single, or family people coming over?
Yeah. So from my experience living here for 2 years and like different friends that are living all around, my office is, for example, in Kreuzberg. I love Kreuzberg, and I will always recommend it to people who are young, who want to go out, to go in restaurants, bars, clubs after work, to ride a bike and just have a good time. Unfortunately, Kreuzberg, because of high demand, the prices went up for apartments recently. And same, just next to Kreuzberg, you have Neukölln, which is kind of similar when it comes to the vibe in general. Maybe that would be a good idea for people. If not Kreuzberg, they'll look in Neukölln because it can be, for example, a bit cheaper. Then you have other districts like Prenzlauer Berg. This is, I think, the most family-friendly area in Berlin. There is a lot of parents. There is a lot of playgrounds. You can always see a lot of. It's like a bit more fancy, I would say, than Kreuzberg. Less graffiti on the walls, but still a lot of cute cafes. I live in Charlottenburg, which is people say kind of more posh, but at the same time, it's when you think about Kudamm, the main shopping street. But Charlottenburg is not only Kudamm, it's also a lot of other places like Kantstraße, full of really good restaurants. I think one of the best in Berlin. Charlottenburg is also very beautiful, one of the oldest districts in Berlin. So a lot of beautiful Altbau, so old buildings you can live in. Lovely to live in Mitte, but it's hard to find apartments there. And a lot of tourists as well. So you can live in Mitte, and so in the middle of the city, have close to Hauptbahnhof, close to all the nice places. And it's, I think, the cleanest in Berlin. But it's not going to be so easy to find apartments. I would always recommend people to find or look for places within the ring. The ring is the S-Bahn, so the train that is going around the city. And within the ring, maybe it's going to be a bit more expensive, but like the public transportation works really great, and you can get anywhere within half an hour. I always say, like either with a bike or with the public transport. When you live outside of the ring, it's going to take you longer. So this is something that you have to think about. Of course, depending where people have their office, but at the same time, if they live somewhere outside of the ring, they have to take into account the transportation to the office. It can take, 45 minutes. So for me, this already means like when I was living in Düsseldorf and traveling to Cologne, that was 45 minutes. And in Berlin, we're talking about this between different districts.
Wow. When you say about the different districts as well, I know prices have like gone up, and we'll come on to that maybe a bit later, but I can't stress enough to people the difference in like, yeah, you're right, the vibes between districts, but also for Kreuzberg, if you're going out, like remember to bring cash, because a lot of people don't accept like the credit card, and it's weird.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people don't trust the banks, which to me
it's a German thing, I think.
Yeah, it was baffling to me, because in London you basically never carry cash. But
same in Poland.
Yeah, it's I remember when I literally the first time I went to Berlin in like a professional sense, I had a candidate who I sort of was looking to place a really senior guy, and I really wanted to impress him. And I didn't know Berlin that well from like a sort of nightlife point of view. So I went with Kreuzberg, and I went to this bar and didn't have any cash on me. They wanted cash. They didn't take card. The bottles of beer were already been open. I went to the cash point next door, and it wouldn't take my card for some reason. And I had to get the candidate to pay because
this is so embarrassing.
I know. And then, that was really embarrassing. I was like really young as well. I was desperate to impress this guy. And in the end, I found a cash point and sort of gave him some cash at the end of the night.
But also the other point is about finding a cash machine. Like it's impossible when you have, I know that many people are using like N26 or the banks where you can use all the cash machines. But I'm, for example, with more German bank for a long time now, and I have to use the ones from the certain bank. And if I don't, then I have €5 for all withdrawal. And basically there's no cash machines. Like in Poland, where I'm from, you can pay with a card for bread and everywhere basically, and here you have to have cash, as you said, and it's also not easy to find the cash machine to actually withdraw it. So this is kind of hilarious.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Do you think that's changing at all, or
a bit
that here to stay?
Like Corona forced people, I believe, to accept cards more because people were, and it was also advised not to pay contactless. And I remember like when I moved here 2 years ago and I already had Apple Pay on my phone, like people were freaking out when I was taking my phone and trying to pay with it because they were like, this is impossible. And now it's like they are opening up a bit more, but still there are so many spätis and places where spätis, so like small shops, where there is no chance. Like even if they have the card machine, they're still going to say, oh, not working today.
Yeah. Crazy, absolutely ridiculous. I'll never be able to get my head around that one. Coming back to like the expenditure of Berlin and the prices, especially with the rents, and this is what a lot of people ask me when they're looking to relocate or relocating. There was the whole debacle with the rent freezes in Berlin. Then I think the rent freezes, that policy is being phased out or has been phased out. Have you noticed an increase whilst you're there in prices of accommodation, but also just generally around the city?
The prices in Berlin are high and definitely are growing pretty fast. But this is a trend I'm seeing everywhere. This is also happening in Poland and other cities in Germany as well. As you said, the rent freeze was here for like 6 months, I believe. And then they advised people to actually save the money if it's not going to be working. And then they took it out, which is kind of weird to do something like this. And I know that a lot of people like didn't put this money back. And then it was kind of really hard. The situation in Berlin, the biggest problem is there is not enough apartments for the number of people that is here. And although companies are building buildings, most of those buildings are for offices and like not apartment buildings. So there's not a lot of new apartment buildings that are coming. So it's difficult to get an apartment here, and really depending on different locations, the prices vary, but still it is expensive. And we always, like when I talk with the candidates, I say, yeah, this is something you definitely have to be prepared for, that it's not going to be easy to find. And if you find a good apartment, this is what people do. Like when they find a good apartment with a good price, they stay, because nobody wants to move out of an apartment which has a good price and then you stay. So it is a huge problem. I'm curious to see what's going to happen. But my husband is an architect and is working for a company actually, which is building buildings. So I have the other side, and I try to understand also the other side. I believe the city of Berlin is not encouraging companies to actually build apartment buildings, and it should be coming from the city itself to make sure that the apartments are built. And this is something that the city is not doing enough of.
Yeah, and it's something that cannot be fixed overnight as well. It's like it's a long term solution that's needed. You're coming back to how there's too many people and not enough apartments. If we flip this to now recruiting, which is what we both do, sort of tech positions in Berlin, there's plenty of positions and not enough people, which is driving up the salaries. So with what I've seen with the software engineering, it seems with my clients, we're doing salary reviews every 6 months and looking at the ranges, and it's going up and up. And especially this year as well, rejected offers are up, counter offers are up, and the task of attracting and retaining tech talent is hotter than ever. And people such as yourself, even I don't know if you saw this graph on LinkedIn, but the surge in demand for recruiters, for people in talent acquisition has gone up massively as well. And I know people really struggling to hire for their talent team. How have you found, sort of since you've been here in Berlin? I know the pandemic obviously was a weird sort of pause, but how have you seen this market trends, especially this year?
Yeah, it's a lot of interesting topics that you actually touched. So first of all, yes, the pandemic stopped it, but for a moment, I believe, like it was maybe 6 months or even less than companies were hesitant to hire. And then it started, and I think it started like double. Like the demand was huge, and also other issues started to happen. So basically, right now, the pandemic made other companies in other countries realize that maybe they do not need offices and they can hire from all over the world. That means that companies from the US and from Israel and all other countries are now also in the fight for the engineers in Berlin, because they know that there is a lot of engineers, because there is a lot of startups. So they can have remote positions with salaries that are, for example, standard for US, which is very, very difficult situation for the market, because obviously this is a huge conversation that we're having with HR professionals. Is like, when you have people that you hire remotely, what do you pay them? Do you pay them the salary that is your salary within your company? But for example, you hire them in India, but that is breaking the Indian market, because other companies in India, they cannot offer those kind of salaries for their employees. So this is basically not fair to other companies in India. But at the same time, if you want to hire those people and want to offer them different kind of salary for the same job that the other people are doing, this is also not fair. So there's kind of finding this balance on what is going to be great. So now you're fighting for talent also for companies from abroad, which is not easy. Already the number of engineers in Berlin is not enough for the demand from the companies, which is getting really, really tough to fill those roles, as you said. And also there is a huge demand for recruiters right now. I myself receive, triple the messages that I received 3 months ago, offering roles. My company is also trying to find a recruiter, which is not easy. And we're having this position open, I believe, for also 3 months. Because companies, they realize that they need to hire, they need to scale. There is a lot of startups that started maybe at the similar time, and right now they need to hire a lot of people. In Berlin, Tesla opened and they need to hire thousands of people, and they're looking for multiple recruiters and sourcers and everyone, basically. So the demand is huge for the engineering candidates, for recruiting candidates. So the situation is definitely interesting. And what I think would be a great advice for companies, because there is a lot of companies who are still hesitant, is you have to open your recruiting for people from outside of Germany. There are people who are only looking for either Berlin or Germany, and never saying always no to relocation, because there are different reasons. People say it's taking long time. I do work with a relocation agency. We do hire people from abroad, and basically it's the same time that you do in Germany. In Germany, the notice period is 3 months.
Absolutely, yeah.
And if you relocate somebody from US who has 2 weeks notice, and then you just have to organize visa and work permit, you're going to have this person sometimes even quicker than the person in Germany.
Yeah, absolutely. I could not agree with that. It's music to my ears. I say that to companies all the time that are hesitant to invest in that relocation side of things. And also as well, it's weird because people say, oh, if I'm relocating someone, it's a risk because they might drop out, they might not move or whatever. But what I've actually found is that, maybe you found this as well, if I'm relocating someone and, they've signed a contract, I mean, I've never really had anyone drop out at that time because they're so committed. It's a great opportunity for them, and they're investing a lot of time and money into that relocation process. If I'm hiring someone for a Berlin company and I'm putting them out of a Berlin company, they can be counter-offered, they can be headhunted by someone else in the meantime. So I would encourage companies definitely to open up. It's honestly not as bad as you think.
Exactly. I fully agree. And I also agree with those candidates when you spend a lot of time with them and you really support them on the visa and work permit process, on finding the apartment, all the paperwork. You're together already so much time before they even step into the door of your company. And they appreciate it, I believe. I really, in the recent time, like 6 months, we brought a lot of people from abroad, and they appreciate the help that they were given, and it's also for them, it's a first experience. I don't think that people immediately are going to jump to the next company because they also want to find out the new market that they are in.
Yeah, absolutely. And that they almost feel indebted to the company as well for moving them over. It's very rare that I see people looking for work who have just moved to Berlin who are like 2 months in, unless they're sort of missold the role. But I know some companies you have to pay back the relocation package, so there's that added factor as well. But with the market, I know it's hard to see into the future, and you're right about the Silicon Valley companies coming in and offering remote work for double salaries. I've had that a couple of times this year where people have been offered good Berlin salaries, like strong, but just out-muscled by a Silicon Valley company. So that's completely true. But I mean, how do you envision Berlin growing in terms of the tech sector? I had this debate with a couple of people. So some people think it's a bubble that's sort of going to burst, but other people are thinking it's just going to keep growing because there's actually a lot of room for growth in Berlin. Although it's grown a lot, it's not like London or Paris where it's really dense. My personal view is that it's going to kind of just keep going and turn into almost like a Silicon Valley.
I also think so. I also think so. Of course, there's problem with apartments, but at some point, I believe somebody's going to wake up and somebody in the German government is also going to think, hey, actually, that's bringing us a lot of money, a lot of exposure, a lot of interesting tech companies. Maybe we should really put emphasis on making it work. And there is a lot of area also outside of Berlin when you think about like all those small cities that could be kind of integrated in to kind of make sure that those people have a place to live and be, and the companies can be basically put in. A friend of mine who I was working with in my previous company, I checked her LinkedIn. If she's going to listen to it, she's going to know that I'm talking about her. But basically, her company organized an offsite for their leadership in Estonia, and they went there to have the offsite basically to talk about different things. And they had it together. Also, there were presenters from basically Estonia's government who were talking about their startups and how the country is supporting the growth of those startups. And they have some of the best startups in the world. They have 10 of the unicorns. And basically what is happening there, the country is really supporting those startups. They make sure that they pay less taxes at the beginning, that they have all the support when it comes to manpower to hire them, that they have all what they need to grow, because the country understands that this is what is bringing money, exposure. This is what is making the country modern. And this is how Estonia is. And I heard also about Lithuania, Latvia. The whole countries there, they're smaller, of course, than Germany, obviously. But the whole countries are fully covered with full speed internet. Everything is working really great because they understand that this is going to benefit the country long term. And changing this mindset in Berlin is also going to support the startup companies and bring even more. And I don't think that it's going to burst. Silicon Valley, London, also other countries and cities that are hubs for those tech companies, I don't think that they did burst, and I don't think that it's something that is going to happen in Berlin. Obviously, some companies that are not doing well, they have not good ideas, and the whole growth is just based on an idea and not on the hard work. They are gonna maybe not survive, but the other ones, I'm sure they will.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, if you look, say, at the top 3 hubs, or 4 hubs, like Amsterdam, London, Paris, and Berlin, Berlin's the only one out of those 4 that's got the room to grow in, whether that be buildings and infrastructure. There's a lot of space in Berlin. I know there's a lot of competition for apartments and things like that, but in terms of just pure sort of ground, and there's not much around Berlin either. So you can really sort of grow into it. But that's one thing about, I sometimes see people moan about, and obviously I don't know like the legalities of the German government policy, but it affects Berlin, is that there's always red tape, there's always bureaucracy, there's the policies in place that just make it harder to do business, and it's holding Berlin back and other cities in Germany as well.
I have an example for it. This is something that Corona already made some of the Berlin offices a bit more flexible, but still not enough. We had a case of a person we hired, and she's from the US, and she already had, the blue card. I don't remember if it was a blue card or visa and work permit in Germany, but basically was here for less than 2 years. So that means that she had to change it for a new employer. And basically, to change it, you cannot do anything online. You have to make an appointment and go to the office to submit all the paperwork to the office. And what is the issue now is there is a lack of appointment date. So basically, instead of hiring this person 15 days after when she was available, it took us months and months to actually get this appointment, for them to just stamp this paper and just to change the employer from one to the other, which is ridiculous. These are examples of things that should be completely changed and modernized. And if German government and all the offices, when it comes to paperwork, is going to be just a bit easier and maybe a bit more online, that would improve so many things, and that would let us companies hire people quicker and easier.
Absolutely. Well, I doubt the German government will listen to this podcast, but if they are, then they need to do something about it. But yeah, I see a lot of people, people on LinkedIn as well moan about this, and it seems to just be the tip of the iceberg. So coming back to like the tech recruiting and just generally recruiting in general, if I'm a software engineer or someone just in general looking to move to Berlin and applying to a company, I'm sure you interview lots of people every week. When it comes to applications and interviews, could you give any pointers to people that could, maybe make their application or their interview performance stronger?
Sure. There's a lot of people who, for example, approach me on LinkedIn about certain roles, and they write me a message and they say, hey, I would be interested in any role anywhere. And basically they do not check what the company is actually offering and the job description, whatever. And basically in Germany, because of GDPR, you would need people to actually apply, submit their applications on the website. So the best way to actually get a conversation or interview with a recruiter is to find a job posting either on LinkedIn or Indeed or wherever it is, and to apply to the company and prepare your application in a way that it's, everything is there in your screen. Nobody has to search for anything. And also put an emphasis on your skills. So not only titles, but also your skills and what you really have done. When invited for an interview, of course, going through different things about your CV and proving what you have done in the previous companies, what I see missing from many candidates is they apply randomly and they do not prepare to the conversations. So if a company has to invest in bringing somebody, paying for relocation, visa and all support, and the person doesn't even know which company they're speaking with, it's really hard to take it seriously and to put this effort from the company perspective. So for me, it is really, and also before I even invite people for the interviews, I even send them links to use cases to our blog. And if I see that nobody bothered to check anything, that is giving me as a recruiter a bad sign, because I understand that people are trying to get a job, but at the same time, what is really gonna put you in front of the employer in the best possible light is you being prepared to this conversation and really being motivated to even talk with them. This is already putting you as a candidate who's interested, motivated, and even if some skills are missing, we're going to say, okay, but look, this person really prepared, let's give them a chance to move forward.
Absolutely. You almost get that motivation to make something happen with that person's application if they're coming to you.
Exactly.
And they do sort of stand out from the crowd. This year I've been doing some embedded recruiting positions at a couple of companies, a couple of days a week, just to fill in their, on a freelance basis, to basically fill in their until they find sort of a permanent solution. So it's been awesome for me, as obviously I'm an agency, an external recruiter, to do the other side of the fence and do these first stage interviews with the sort of get to know call. And I was pretty astounded of the amount of people that just didn't do any research on the company and almost expected you to kind of just explain what they do. And that's, maybe there's different in other cultures around the world, I don't know, but for Berlin and Europe, it's definitely not the way to do it. I mean, it takes zero talent to look through a company's website and just know what they do, turn up on time, ask some questions at the end, even if it's just, what's the interview process, just something.
Yeah, I very much agree. And sometimes, because I always give intro for people when I start the interview, and sometimes they don't even listen to me, and then they ask the same questions, which is sad. Really, if you want to have a chance, I understand that it is motivating for you already enough to go and work in Germany. But if you want to get a job in Germany, prepare yourself. I would also advise, instead of applying for 100 companies, select really the top 5 and do everything to get there. And then if you don't, move forward to the next 5. And in this way, you can be prepared, you can be focused, and you can be really, people are going to see that you're willing, that you really want to get to a certain company, and that's just going to put you first in line.
Absolutely. And the same goes for the hiring manager interviews, and I always speak in software engineer terms for the coding or the coding challenge. Where do you stand? I know you obviously there's a lot of tech that goes on at your company. Where do you stand in terms of do candidates do coding challenges, or do you do a live coding rounds? Is it time sensitive?
We do have a coding challenge, which was, this is also an interesting topic, because I know that some companies, they use external sources of coding challenges, website already generating that. But what we have done in our company, we have our own coding challenges, which are based on our basically website code base and kind of, what we do, which I think is more interesting for candidates. This is the feedback that I'm receiving from candidates is, yeah, it's great. I had a chance to log into your platform, to check out, to do something which is relevant to this job, instead of another coding challenge, which is completely unrelated. But also I want to always put emphasis when I work with new teams and we develop coding challenges, it cannot be too time consuming. If a person is applying for a job and is asked for 5, 6 coding challenges and each of them is taking 8 hours, nobody's going to do it. So I say 2-3 hours is maximum. And we always give people a couple of days to do it. And I understand the time sensitivity if you want to hire people, but at the same time, be quick with all the other parts. Be quick with replying to candidates, with scheduling interviews. Don't take, a week to schedule an interview, and then just give the candidate like 4 or 5 days to deliver the challenge. And based on the challenge, do also an interview with the tech team. So where you go deeper and deeper, this is already giving you a huge baseline. And for the live coding, I'm not the biggest fan. I talked with a lot of engineers and they said that this is very stressful for them. People are looking at their hands when they are coding, and it's like, it's not something that you do normally. Like you sit at home or at work and you do it yourself, and the live coding sessions are extremely stressful, and that's not something I advise to my teams.
Yeah, that's definitely the main flag that comes up. I know a couple of companies that do it, and it definitely depends. I mean, from a time point of view, it saves time. You don't have anyone to sort of, you don't have to do a weekend, and in terms of the company side, they can just review it sort of there and then. But having someone watch you in an interview do your work. I mean, it's like people watching me and you try and do some sourcing or something in like half an hour.
Oh my God, I would die.
Yeah, it would be super stressful. So I think home coding challenges are on the main what companies do, but it's always a source of debate, and every software engineer has got their own opinion.
Yeah, definitely. I believe it's bringing a lot of insights for the team to kind of pick something from the challenge and then move forward to a discussion itself. But completely skipping it's also not giving you the idea of how do people actually do their work. And I know that many candidates, they offer, I can send you my GitHub. But at the same time, this is not, you cannot compare it with other candidates. It's not giving everyone the same fair chance. So if it's consistent, that's just giving you a fair interview process for everyone.
Absolutely. Cool. So last question, I wanted to just, because there will be people listening that are maybe thinking about applying to a Berlin company or thinking about moving to Berlin. And maybe they're on the fence and they're not quite sure. So why should these people make the jump and move to Berlin?
Berlin is an amazing city, full of, it's just the most diverse city I have ever lived in, which if you like to, get to know the people of different backgrounds, ethnicities, from different nationalities, this is the best place that you can do it at. You can very easily find friends because people are just talking to you all the time. You can sit in the park and somebody's going to say, hey, I had it last time. Hey, what is the book that you're reading? I saw it in the shop. Do you think it's fine? And then you start the conversation, and suddenly the next time you're going for a coffee and you found a new person to talk with. What we talked about the districts, I think is super interesting. Like you have multiple different cities in one city. Like when you think about, I don't know, London, Munich, it's often like very homogeneous thing that you think about the whole city in general. And Berlin is basically impossible to say because each district is completely different. And I know that this is something that is going to encourage most of the people. You really don't have to speak German. You can easily live here without speaking German. In any shop, restaurant, people either they know English or they basically know only English. They don't even speak German. And maybe it is annoying for some Germans actually being here that like all the restaurants and shops, they change to staff that is English speaking, but for people coming from abroad, it's amazing. And it's also eliminating the problem of the companies saying that they are international, but they are really not. And then you join the company, they said that they're speaking English, but when you go in, you actually have most of the people speaking German in the kitchen or whatever, and you don't feel good with it. Here, really, for years, people had to hire international people, which kind of eliminated this problem, and the teams are very international, which is really bringing also a different perspective.
Fantastic. Well, if that doesn't persuade you to go to Berlin, then I don't know what does. But Barbara, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciated it. Berlin and tech recruiting are two of my favorite topics. So I really enjoyed that. And I know there will be so many people out there listening who will take great value from the little tips and the advice that you've given them about relocation and also about talent acquisition as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Alex. It was lovely to speak with you.
Thank you so much for listening to the Building Our World podcast. I really hope you got some great value from it and enjoyed the conversation. If you are new to the series, then I do encourage you to take a look at the back catalogue. I've got some conversations with some of the brightest and best in Berlin tech. And if you want to stay up to date with future episodes, then please do hit that subscribe button and that follow button. It really helps me try and gain some traction with this series. But anyway, thank you so much for your time. And until next time, goodbye.